today. I'm going to share my screen, and just as I do that, uplifting, cheery presentation from Tom there, and prior to that, the Tevi presentation. I would hark back to the words of that Malcolm made first off this morning, and Colin, and actually Chris. This is really serious now. We are looking at, when we say nature in decline, globally, that's a 68% drop of wildlife mass. So that's a reasonably catastrophic decline. So everything we're talking about here today isn't just a nice to have. Everything we're talking about here today is absolutely crucial now. And we have an opportunity within the visitor economy to be leaders of change. In actual fact, this isn't something that we put on a list that we might get round to sometime over our next couple of seasons, on top of, quote, the real business. This is our real business now. So I'm going to run through a couple of the issues. I'll run through these slides very quickly. Most of them are images, but I've got some quotations there of some of the tourism businesses that are grappling with some of the issues that we're contending with at the moment. Very briefly, Coast, long time. My concern is that Malcolm's right. We've lost 10 years. We were talking about a lot of these things 10 years ago. And we need now to accelerate everything that we're doing and ramp it up. Every good thing that you can imagine doing and every good action that you can imagine taking away from today, we need to have been doing that for the last 10 years and we haven't. So we need to do it 10 times as much now and get the people around us to find ways in which they can engage. So the network really was for progressive businesses set up in 2014, looking at a wide range of issues across the visitor economy. All of these issues you saw on the left-hand side, we worked with lots and lots and lots of different people. 2005, looking at how we can bring the connection between waste and energy and habitat and landscape and water and marine and social science and economics and carbon, because of course they're all connected. With the early adopter businesses, what we would refer to as the positive deviants, the businesses who were out to change the game, and were there to encourage the businesses that they worked with to pick up that mantle as well. And there are now, as we speak, hundreds and hundreds of extraordinary businesses across Cornwall doing exactly that. In fact, not just in Cornwall, the network spreads across the UK and further afield, deciding to do something around social justice, climate justice and ecological justice as part of their business model. We've got lots and lots and lots of champions and ambassadors through these slides just for the sake of not having much time. And we've developed all sorts of materials about how businesses can engage with their visitors on this. We don't work directly with visitors, we work with the businesses, and so we give them the communication tools, talking about the landscape, talking about their wildlife, and then actually giving the tools and the kit to the businesses so that they can reduce their impact in terms of cleaning materials they use, or how they manage their waste, or how they procure, or how they manage their utilities, how they communicate with their visitors. And of course, as an example of that, the visitor charter, which we established along with, was picked up by lots and lots and lots and lots of visitors, of businesses in Cornwall who customised it to be exactly what they needed it to be in order to encourage people to be their best sort of visitor. And of course, then it was picked up by people across the UK, and then picked up by Scotland, who just plucked it up wholesale and used that. It's just a really simple way of engaging with our visitors, which goes back to the pledge work that Victoria and Chris were talking about, silly. But as Chris said, we need more than pledge. And what you see on the tin site, I think the Explore tin coat, when I last stated, and there's a great visitor charter that we've developed with the local community and business members on the Tin Coast website. I'm sure Charlotte can give you the link. Can you still see my screen, Charlotte?
We can see your screen. Sometimes your voice is fading in and out, but I think it's down to your connection.
Okay, well, I'll just keep going. I think hopefully the images will more or less speak for themselves. Thanks, Charlotte. So I'm going to whiz through Some of these issues are the resilience and the challenge. So the context, of course, is that there's a lot of things happening at the moment. I'm zooming out from the specifics of hedgehog support to global issues. We are in times which are referred to as VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And that is putting a lot of demand on us as businesses, but it's an opportunity for us to step up. Those disruptions that we're surrounded by, COVID, geopolitical violence, we're hearing about social unrest, new visitor behaviours. My God, last year and the year before, that was a bit of a shocker. People not trusting government, biodiversity crash, a changed and changing climate. That makes everything quite uncertain, not very sure what we should be doing. And of course, the bad news is a lot of us see some of the bad news, but think that it's actually addressed to somebody else. So this is the fastest ever science reminder lesson of what's happening in terms of global heating. Greenhouse gases, they're great. They stop us freezing to death because space is very, very cold. The two biggest gases involved are carbon dioxide and methane. They're both carbon-based. The difficulty is we've been pumping those into the atmosphere and the earth now since the Industrial Revolution, and we've made effectively a huge duvet over the planet. We've got too many tobs, and now we've hit 1.2 degrees warmer than we should be. We're headed towards 1.5, and if we're not careful, we're going to be headed towards 2 or 3. Now, 2 or 3 is catastrophic. Just so you're really clear, it isn't a slightly warmer day. 1.2 has already been bad enough. We've seen a lot of things happening already. Last week, 30 degrees C above normal in the Arctic, 40 degrees C above normal in the Antarctic. These are really serious times, not just something that we can pretend isn't happening anymore. The latest UN report was seen as code red for humanity. And of course, we saw in 2021, Canada, Germany, Detroit, USA, Moscow, Siberia, Eastern. We forgot because then COVID happened, but it was a mess in terms of extreme weather events. Too much rain, too much sunshine, too much heat, not enough rain all over the world. So it's now with us. And of course, the third bad thing is nature is very keen to have our help now. We've heard from some of the previous presentations about how important it is that we see what we're doing in our business and personal life as contributing to something positive. The big picture is quite stark. We think that the globe is full of wild animals, when in actual fact, 4% of biomass is wild, and the rest of it is us and the stuff we grow to eat. So we've done a job on the planet. This is why it goes back to what Chris and Malcolm were saying, that this isn't about sustainability anymore. You can't sustain something that you've lost. What we need to do is regenerate and restore what we've lost and then allow it to thrive. So this is why all this is so important. The food supply, this affects us absolutely as families, as households, and as part of the visitor economy. If we don't support that natural environment, we can't grow the food that we need. And as Ireland's president said at a biodiversity conference in 2019, in terms of the impact we're seeing of biodiversity, if we were coal miners, we'd be up to our waists in dead canaries. This is about as serious as it gets. And this is a quotation from the United Nations Environmental Programme. It talks about how coastal tourism communities are very, very vulnerable. I won't read it all. I'll send on the slides to Charlotte and you can look at them yourselves if you wish, but that last paragraph is the degree to which people are prepared for disasters that determines how vulnerable or resilient will be. We're talking about resilience to dial down the vulnerability. And we can see we're already here. That's a picture of the Bude sea pool. The brown foam in there does not entice visitors. It's caused by nutrients washed off the land by heavy rainfall. Those nutrients are all those pesticides and fertilizers that Tom was talking about that we use in our agriculture. And if they're in the wrong place, actually, if they're in, quote, the right place, they do quite a lot of harm. They do even more harm once they're washed down into our water bodies. And as one activity, this was some research we did last year, so it's not very long ago. This is one activity provider. Crikey, we've had our head in the sand for too long. Let's just look at the state of the sea and beach. Unbelievable damage to the beach from storms, huge dangerous sandbanks, closed out dumping rogue surf, polluted waters after heavy rainfall. All we need is for one death or life-changing injury on beaches, which will damage our tourism for years. It's by the grace of God that we've not had any major incidents. Our best asset is at risk, the very thing that encourages people to come to Bude is at risk of becoming the most dangerous thing. Lose that, and we lose everything. And we know from talking to businesses up and down Cornwall over the last, it's not just COVID that's been a problem. We've seen catastrophic, we've really, really extreme weather disruption that makes it very difficult to do anything. This is a food grower. They talk about, we've been growing here for 18 years and we've really noticed sea change, like dry, cold springs, then warm and wet summers. This year, August was just so wet. You can see there a flooded farm. Everything we were growing was awash. And another business said it's almost impossible to run any kind of event without keeping your fingers crossed for normal weather. So we know we are in times of great disruption. This was a Cornish food and retail business. They said other people were talking about it not being warm enough on the beach to get people in the sea, the activity providers. The same summer, this person was saying during the heat wave this year, our staff got sick with heat exhaustion due to the temperature in the shop, and we closed because it was just too hot and unsafe for people to come in. 84 degrees C in the shade of the shop. We're a grade 2 listed building with no insulation. The summer, a freeze in the winter. This summer was overwhelming and something we would not want to do again. So we need to understand what's happening in terms of the changes we're seeing and become resilient to them. They're already feeling it. 18% of them said they were already experiencing one or more of the following disruptions: visitor travel, damage to local habitat and wildlife, food growing or supplies, changes to the sea. That wasn't COVID, that's just in terms of extreme weather. 30% of them said they were going to be expecting to feel one or more of them over the next 10 years. And as one of them says, our biggest business concern is severe weather, mainly with respect to visitors deciding not to come to Cornwall, but also because of the potential for storm damage. They talk about the river flooding, damaging habitat and wildlife, clean water versus pollution and wildlife. Businesses know this. What they want is support. 78% of them said they did not know or were not sure who to ask about climate resilience and coping with potential impacts. It goes straight back to what Malcolm said. How have we got to this stage? We were doing really well 10 years ago. We had the highest number of green certified businesses in the UK with the highest percentage of silver and gold awards. We've lost ground for all sorts of reasons. We've lost ground, but we need to do a really good job of catching up now. To know more information on how to be climate and nature positive. So all the stuff that we've been hearing from this morning, this afternoon, businesses are really keen to hear that. They want to know how they incorporate into their own business operations, but also pass it on to their visitors. Tom's been saying this, and we've been talking to hundreds of businesses over the years. You are the connection that your visitors have to understanding the change that they can take and how they can become a positive contributor to these challenges. Moving on from that one, of course, because Malcolm asked me to speak challengingly, we do have a challenge in Cornwall. Tourism is embedded in housing and homes and the built environment. And of course, we've got a massive homelessness and housing crisis in Cornwall at the moment. And we have to think about what the impact of tourism is on that. This is all about seeing the impact we might be having. We've seen lots of people suddenly wanting to rent their property out to visitors, and we've seen evictions, homelessness, and the demand for social housing and house prices all rocket. Now, that isn't a good place to live. And you only get a great place to visit if you've got a good place to live. So we've got to be really careful that we're not accidentally extracting the best of our community for the sake of what? I'm not sure. And of course, we've got huge poverty. Tourism has a huge part to play in this. How can we make sure that it's an irrigator of wealth in its community rather than an extractor of its landscape and wildlife and money? And then, of course, you've got things like the pandemic landing on top of that, where Cornwall locals were too scared to go shopping. They're back to the term over-tourism that Malcolm used. This is about us taking charge, I think, of what we want tourism to be in our community. It's why we need a strategy. It's why we need to understand how extraordinarily fortunate it is to live somewhere so amazing, but what it is we need to do to make sure we stop the damage that's being caused by all of us in all sorts of ways and actually start restoring it. It got to the stage where the police were having to ask visitors to be considerate. Now, we knew that there was a particular set of events that made people behave very badly over the last couple of years. But that isn't sustainable tourism. It's not regenerative or storage or restorative or anything. It's just extractive and miserable. And I've spoken to lots of businesses who don't want anything to do with tourism if it's going to be like this. So we need to decide what it is we want to offer, and we need to invite people down on that basis and find ways so that by coming here, they can, by default, contribute to a social, environmental, and economic framework, so that tourism is here for us. We are not here for tourism. Tourism should be contributing to the place. So the good news then is that in actual fact, even though we're seeing really significant damage and really significant problems every time, in actual fact, people are absolutely taking action. Yes, we know there are really, really big impacts on our wildlife because of climatic changes. They're happening here, just in case anybody thinks it's just happening to polar bears. It's really not. We're seeing impacts in marine and terrestrial and shoreline, and open fields or woodland, every sort of landscape, moorland, every sort of landscape is seeing an impact. But the Wildlife Trust is supporting climate change action. And in actual fact, there's so much that we can do as individuals. The internet is groaning with ideas for a household and as a business. And of course, the brilliant thing is that there are loads of people doing them. Colin mentioned this about the importance of taking action and actually really taking action, understanding how urgent this is. When people got the notion of 2030 into their minds, taken from the UN IPCC report in 2018, the reason for that is that was an estimate at how long we had to change everything. The world won't end in 2030 if we don't, but our chance of a decent life probably will. We've got about 8.5 years to change the way we travel and eat and live and deliver our economy across the globe. So the change has to happen now. And of course, we're seeing lots of charitable organisations stepping up to this. We'll all be hit by extreme weather events, rising energy prices, big disruptions at home and at work. So these organisations are working with our most vulnerable community members, including those people that don't live in a good home and haven't got a decent wage and are suffering from health impacts, but they're looking at their impact as well. We're counting our carbon, we're changing our lighting, protecting our local habitats, changing our banks and pensions. That's really, really important. I cannot say how important that is. That is more important than many of the other things added up, because you may be inadvertently investing in the very problem you're trying to solve by the actions you might be taking at work to reduce your carbon. So check out what your bank's like and check out where your pension is invested. Buying secondhand, reducing our waste, advocating for healthy homes, supporting repair companies, all of these tiny charities and community organisations are on this. So my implicit question is, where's tourism in this? We absolutely need to be on there with them. And so many other organisations are Blinken for tourism declares climate emergency. Culture has, business has, our Royal Cornwall Hospital Trust has declared, health has declared, the university has declared, Cornwall Council has declared. We need to get our act together on this and make sure we are up there working with them. If our health system which we cannot do without at all, is really on this in terms of reducing its own carbon footprint while still saving lives, then that means that we all need to be right up there with them. So the really good news is there are groups everywhere. One of the things I would suggest, I think it was Tom suggests, go and find out. There could be a marine conservation group near you. There could be a climate action group near you. There could be habitat and wildlife support group near you. Go and find out contribute to your time. You might be able to offer them support, a room to meet in. You might be able to offer them a photocopier. If you've got a marketing officer in your business, maybe you could give them some marketing support. This is about all of us stepping up now. It's not just about handing it all over to the volunteers that do everything else. So the road to resilience really is about thinking in systems. It's not about thinking just about our business or just about one species or just about our county. It's thinking about the whole rather than the parts. It's thinking about the synthesis rather than analysing individual component parts. Tom's an ecologist, so he will know that the difference between conservationists and ecologists is that ecologists think in systems. This is really important. It's not about the structure, it's about the process. It's about how the network works. It's not about the object, it's about the relationships. How do you relate to the local community groups in your area that are tackling really difficult social, environmental, and ecological problems locally? How are you helping them? How can you contribute? It could be directly, as I say, it could be working with our visitors so that they can do that as well. Visitor gifting has been going for years. We originally set it up in, I can't even remember now. Probably about 2010. And we asked if people wanted to be part of a really big one, but in actual fact, local businesses want to be part of their own individual visitor gifting scheme. And now there are dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of businesses running visitor gifting schemes, supporting the Marine Conservation Society, their local football club, even local pathway maintenance, all sorts of things. Some fantastic businesses out there. And of course, the other great thing is that there are some areas now, Bude is a case in point, where they're really starting to go large on this. They're calling it a sustainable. Really, this is about resilience. And they're working on supporting older people to help them engage with schools and with different sectors of the local community, with food and with culture, all to see what they can do to get involved in making sure that Bude remains resilient to climate. And then, of course, I'm asking for leaders now. Emma Stratton, Bedrothan, Patrick Landmaid, here with us today. Patrick has been working on fair wages for years. It's always referred to as a low wage economy. That isn't something that just happens, that's a decision. If in actual fact, in order to run your business, you can only pay people low wages, then we need to rethink our business model. We can't afford to do that. Patrick has been behind workers on this for years and years and years, and I think he was the first business in Cornwall to be part of a fair wage, being part of the fair wage and minimum wage foundation. That can't be right. Everybody should be doing that across the tourism industry. Emma's been working on housing and homelessness. She runs award-winning hotels, but she has just set up an incredible group of people whose mission it is to bring people together to enable Cornwall to build the homes and communities it needs. How can we invite people to come on holiday to a county where we haven't actually even got enough homes for the people who live here? Surely this is about sanctuary for everybody. So that's what I'm talking about in terms of leaders. So connect to those groups that are surrounding you. There are 55 groups across Cornwall. There'll be one near you. You can find them on Facebook. There are local groups working on repair cafes, on working on incredible edible projects, and working with local repair cafes, and climate hubs where people can start to talk about what they feel about the climate threat and how they can get involved positively. You can be part of that. The challenge then, really, just to finish off, is to join the dots. Join the dots between all of those. It's about systems thinking, between holiday lets and housing fairness. There's a connection there between food and biodiversity. What sort of food are we selling, and where are we buying it from, and what sort of, is it improving or damaging the land it's grown in? About economics and community. Fair wages is a case in point. How regenerative is our sector? Sustainable is the least ambitious aspiration tourism now. Secondly, collaborate. Work with our staff and our visitors to be climate, nature, and social justice positive. All the research that's been done over years, when Malcolm with Southwest Tourism, we did loads of research on how visitors responded to really positive, socially and environmentally positive tourism. Visitors love it. Why wouldn't they love it? But you need to talk to them about it. They need to feel as if they're taking part in something. And if they feel that by coming on holiday, they're contributing to a beautiful place and to that local community, they love that. To be honest, if they don't love that, we shouldn't be inviting them here. It's as simple as that. We don't really want to be inviting people that think it's all right to trash Cornwall and to maintain injustice. So it's not rocket science, really. And in terms of our staff, we know our staff love working in places that are ethically minded and have got social justice in our sites. We know that. And at the moment, it's been quite hard to find new employees, workers. They can pick and choose. They want the businesses who are all over this and want to find ways of becoming better. Leverage if we are running a business, we are already privileged, even if we work really, really, really hard. We need to check and use that privilege for common good for one and all. Emma's the case in point there. Runs a really successful set of businesses. She knows that she has privilege there, and she is reaching out to people that she knows to say, come on, we've got a big problem. There's something that we can do about it. Reach out to those communities of the sector to support active positive change. Find out which charities and local organisations and community groups are operating in your area, or maybe across Cornwall with a theme that's important to you. Introduce yourself, find out how you can support them. They would love to meet you. And finally, we need to understand that disruptive times are here now. We're not going to go back to whatever we thought normal was, as Colin said. We need to make change a good place to be. We need to build in that resilience. We need to make our home in Cornwall a fair and resilient place to thrive with a carbon neutral future. Now, there's lots of issues in there about carbon neutral and net zero, which we can talk about at a different time, but essentially we need urgent, massive action, as Colin spelled out, and we need that to be for everybody. There's no room for people to be left behind here. Maybe what we need is a destination resilience partnership, and I hear all Malcolm's comments on that. So I would say there's everything that we can do here. There's everything that needs to be done, but we're in a really good place to do it. The coast site has been down for the last 6 months while I didn't really think we did so much of this 15 years ago. I didn't think we'd need to do it again. But in actual fact, we've had lots and lots of requests from people who don't know where to start, despite all the work that's been done by so many businesses. So we found some more money, and in fact, it was G7 that helped us with some of the work, and the new co-site will relaunch in 2 weeks, and we're going to carry as much information about all of the things you've heard today and everything else on the site, be free network as before, just to try and make sure that people have got an opportunity to get involved and to roll their sleeves up and to be one of the ones that are doing something incredibly positive about this. What an opportunity for astonishing leadership. So thank you very much indeed. I hope, thank you for tolerating my croaky voice, and hopefully most of that got through. Thank you, Charlotte.